Let's go.
Welcome to the show. In this must-see episode of DrWhitty Today, we dive into the topic of leading across generations. We explore unique challenges and opportunities that arise when managing a diverse team spanning multiple generations from baby boomers to Gen Z. This insightful conversation will help enhance your leadership skills and create a more harmonious and effective workplace. My guest host, DrWhitty McPherson, is a seasoned entrepreneur with extensive experience in the international fitness industry. He transitioned from owning and operating successful fitness ventures to becoming a sought-after coach and consultant, guiding micro businesses in effective leadership and management strategies. Currently, DrWhitty leverages his expertise as a project manager in community development within the public sector, where he adeptly navigates diverse business landscapes, fosters growth, and empowers leaders. Driven by a passion for enabling others to thrive, DrWhitty contributes to vibrant, sustainable communities. Listeners and viewers, here and at home, please welcome our host, DrWhitty. Good evening, good evening, good evening. How are you? How are you?
Very well, very well. Thank you. How are you doing, Doc?
Great. I cannot complain. Welcome to the DrWhitty Today platform. Welcome to all of our viewers out there. We apologize for running a little late, but as you can see, we are here. We made it, and we are great and grateful to be back one more time to talk to the DrWhitty Today crowd out there. So, as you can see from the beginning, we're going to be talking about leading across generations. We got our guest host, Mr. DrWhitty McPherson, all the way from London, right?
That's right.
All right. So we're going to get into it. I'm excited about this episode. This one has been in the works for a while, correct?
That's right.
All right.
It's been a while.
So, and we know he's on a different time zone, so we're just grateful that you're even up and you're talking to us right now. What time is it over there?
It's 12:15 a.m.
All right. So kudos to DrWhitty McPherson for being up this late and be willing to talk to us on today. So, DrWhitty, tell us a little bit about yourself that we didn't hear about in the intro.
A little bit about myself. Let's see now. What you didn't, you covered everything in the intro. There's not much, there's not much for me to go through. That was an amazing intro.
All right. Oh, wow. Okay. We covered it all, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
Good to go.
All right. Well, I like to say, let's get our workout on then. So, leading across generations, I want to, first of all, most people may not know, but in most workforces today, there are at least 5 generations of people working together. And so we experience all these different diversities, identities, every different thing that you can think about, manager, leading styles, and a lot of different, I don't want to say problems, I will say challenges, leadership challenges, and not only leadership challenges, but employee challenges. So one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation is because in my own organization, we have at least 5 generations of people working together, and everybody don't see eye to eye. And then one of the things that I hear a lot is people saying such things as, this generation or that generation is different, or I can't work with them, or they don't want to hear us, or they think they know everything. And so I wanted to have this conversation so that we can help not only leaders, but employees as well, learn how to collaborate and work together in today's workforce. So, if you will, Mr. McPherson, explain why it's important for leaders to understand generational differences. And before you answer that, I just want to say just in case people aren't aware, you have the baby boomers. Uh, Yeah, baby boomers, typically born between 1946 and 1964. You have Generation X, born from 1965 to 1980. You also have Gen Z from about 1997 to 2012, and then you also have the millennials, um, from 1981 to about 1996. And I believe that the Gen Zers comprise the most people in the workforce of today. And one thing that I discovered, which I did not know, is they classified another uh, excuse me, group of employees called the silent generation. And the silent generation are those people who are older adults. Today's term is older adults, not senior citizens. They're referred to as older adults, and some of us have people in our organizations that might be in their 70s. They may be working because they want to work. They may be working because they need to work. They may be working because they want to pay for their grandchildren's college or whatever. But whatever the case, they're there, and they have been referred to as the silent generation, normally born between 1928 and 1945. So, Durwayne, tell us why it's important for us to be able to understand the different generations among us.
It's highly important to understand the different generations, because if you are a leader, you are oftentimes, especially as a micro business, or you're expected to wear many hats. And with those many hats come with various communication styles. And for those communication styles to be effective, you need to understand who your audience is at that particular moment. So are you dealing with a baby boomer, or dealing with a Gen Z, Gen X, and all the other variations? Because there's a different communication style for each. There's a different expectation from each. There's different drivers for each. So by understanding what these various drivers are, what these motivations are, communication styles can help you become a better leader for your business, for your staff. And by being able to capsulate all of this, you're improving staff engagement, you're improving staff resilience, you're improving potential collaboration, not just with you and your employees, but between your employees and one another. And I think that's why it's very crucial to have that understanding.
All right. Um, my One of my experiences years ago when I was in the military, I remember when I first got in, and I was walking around, and a lot of times the people that have been in the military, they were, excuse me, the people that were in the military and had been there for some years, I would hear a lot of them saying things like, um, it's time for me to go. It's time for me to go. And they would have these just different things that they would say in earshot. They would never say things directly to a person, but they would say it out loud to voice their frustration. And so
Mm.
I didn't understand what that meant. And so when me being a young soldier at the time, I used to wonder, like, why do they keep saying that? Like, what's wrong with us? What's wrong with my generation? Why is it that it seemed like they think something's wrong with us? But I never asked that question. But the funniest thing is when I reached that period to where I was at around, I think I was at 20 or just a little bit over 20. And then the experience with the newer generations. And then I found myself thinking, like, it's time for me to go. It's time for me to go. Right. But as soon as I thought that, it's like I experienced, an epiphany. It's like an aha moment. I thought back
Hmm.
to myself at the beginning, and then I
Hmm.
thought, oh wow, that's what that meant. And so I didn't really like that thought. So what I said to myself was, no, it's not time for me to go. It's time for me to change. And so it was a challenge for a lot of leaders to deal with the newer generations coming into the military, because When I came in, it was like, um, if a leader told you to do something, you did it. You
Mm,
didn't ask why. You didn't challenge authority. You just carried out the order. And if you did have a question, you might ask the question later.
mm-hmm,
But today's generations, it's like they want to know, well, why do I need to do it? Why do I have to do it right
yeah,
now? Why is it important for me to do it? It's like you have to really be able to, I say, connect first before you can communicate. And I think that is where uh, we are missing it, is the connection part, because everybody's communicating, but few people are connecting, right?
mm-hmm, that's right.
All right. So, from your perspective, what are some important communication strategies and practical tips for communicating effectively with team members of different ages?
I think the most important thing I would start with would be being attentive.
Being attentive.
Um, being attentive, because someone told me one time, which is listen twice, speak once. So if I'm dealing with any staff or whoever, if I'm consulting, it's all about listening, taking in that information, then you can make informed decision, not just running based on assumptions or um, expectations. So being attentive and also being flexible, being open-minded. You got to understand that each generation approaches things and understands things very differently. So as the leader of the business or as the manager, you may have your own strategy, you may have your own perspective or viewpoints, you may have your own way of doing things. But if you can adapt, I don't believe necessarily you need to change because change is already happening around us. But can we adapt to the changes that are happening around us? Can we pivot in order to allow more flexibility for this generation to have an input? And again, when your staff feels like they have a voice and they have an input, they you build that empathy. They trust you a little bit more, and you kind of collaborate more. And there's not that distance between the boss and the employee. It's more of a collaborative effort, which is how I tend to consult with my leaders, or how I learned how to approach business. When I opened my first business, I struggled a lot because I had my communication style, and I expect everyone to adapt to how I do things. I like things done yesterday, and if I go with that approach, I'm going to have conflict. So I've had to learn how to listen attentively and understand who this particular person is that's in front of me, and how I can get the best out of them, and how they can get the best out of me, and how we can collaboratively move forward. So I think it's, again, being flexible, being attentive. Sometimes it's being patient because different people learn at different rates. So I would say, yeah, go along those lines, and you should have more success with your staff. And there's something wrong with the sound. I can't hear you.
I apologize. I was on mute. Um, I like how you talked about listening, because when I'm talking to a group of people and different leaders, and I'm talking about listening to your people that you're working with, or listening to your leaders, I always talk about listening with your eyes, listening with your ears, even listening with your nose if need be. But
Hmm.
these are all the things that help you as the leader be able to connect to the person that you're working with. And so
Yeah.
many times you have leaders out there that they have this cookie cutter way or method of doing things, and they expect it to work for everybody,
Hmm.
and it just doesn't work that way. Now that now I understand where it come from, because there are certain things, say for instance, being in the military, the way you do certain things, you do things one way for everybody. But
Hmm.
when you're talking about being in the workforce of today, it's like you said, you have to adapt. And that means not only adapt to one person, but you might have to adapt to the other person because, like you said, everybody is different, and each generation responds differently. They handle situations, they solve problems differently, and so we can't go in with this cookie cutter mentality and think that it's going to work for all our employees. And so I think that is very important to remember. So, and the other point I wanted to make about listening is I often talk about one of the illustrations that I use is I say, have you ever had a conversation where you are listening to somebody, they're trying to talk to you, but or I'll put it this way, you're talking to somebody and they appear to be listening, but before you're finishing your thought, they already come back with something in defense or either response or
Yeah.
something. And so what I tell people is that's not listening because you don't listen to respond, you listen to hear, and
Mm.
then you process it and then you respond. And then I tell them you don't want to be listening to, let's say if Durwayne was talking to me and I can see your mouth move and you're giving me all this great information, but yet I'm really not listening to you because I've placed your voice in a queue in my head as I'm searching for a response. And
Hmm.
then my brain is like, how do I respond to this? How do I defend myself against this if need be? And so before you even finish, I'm already, shooting something out my mouth that it could make sense, but oftentimes it doesn't. And it doesn't help us connect. It usually does the opposite. And so that's one of the things that I talk about. And so I'm glad you brought about listening, because listening is a key aspect of communication, and it's bigger than actually talking. So I'm glad you pointed that out. So you also talked about, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just about to say one very important thing I think is it will be very advantageous for the listeners is it takes us typically we have about 7 seconds of listening before we start to think about other things, think about our responses, think about various other things. So you got to understand if you're communicating to our staff, there you have about 7 seconds of communication before their mind starts wondering about how they're going to respond to you, about whatever else is going on, in their life at that particular moment. So again, keep that in mind. But also, various generations have different levels of attention span, and this is something that's very important. It get business leadership management has a lot of strategy that comes around cognitive ability, personality characteristics. Those are very important things. And again, one of the ways as a leader you can develop yourself or become more effective as a leader is by embracing these skills, taking these courses, understanding these little cues when you're dealing with your staff members. Thank you.
Great, great. You're welcome. You were talking about building empathy and trust a little bit, excuse me, earlier. So I'm going to ask you, why is it so important that as a leader you develop empathy, and how does that relate to trust in terms of leading your team?
Developing empathy is important because we need to approach things with a in a human way, right? We have a lot of managerial books or leadership books that's very um, authoritarian, and it takes away that again, you need to have a balance between the boss or the manager, but there also needs to be that space for us being humans, us being able to make mistakes, us being able to understand that situations happens in our lives, and some days we're on, some days we're off. So I think being able to build a professional relationship builds empathy. Again, with that empathy, you have your staff will better support you because they better, again, it leads into trust because they trust that you have their best interest at heart. They trust that you are someone that um, is focused on the quality and productivity of your staff and not just how much profit you're making or ticking boxes or just meeting targets and KPIs. So I think a lot of that, having a human approach to your staff, helps to build that empathy and that relationship, and that bleeds into developing trust. And at the back end, you have a stronger team that's ready to work hard, to see you successful. And of course, the more successful your business is, the more successful they are.
Exactly. Nobody wants to just feel like a number, but
Mm,
everybody wants to feel included in
yes,
whatever your work is, whatever your organization is and does. And so I'm glad that you brought that out. It just made me thinking about one of my favorite quotes that says, "Nobody cares what you know until they know how much you care." And basically, who cares what you know, what you can show me? What do you care about me as your employee? And that's the question that a lot of people want to know. And I think that is one of the drivers of performance as well, wouldn't you say?
100%. Yeah.
All right, all right. Let's talk about some of the unique strengths, the unique skill sets that different generations bring to the table. Why is that important for leaders and managers to be able to leverage as they work with their teams?
That's a fantastic question. I actually did a post about this on my social platforms a while ago, because large organizations tend to have much earlier generations. Much earlier generations have various different approaches. So let me just refer to my notes here. Um, so if we're looking at the baby boomers are, if you want to get the best out of baby boomers, they're more, because of their experience and years doing what they're doing, they can easily take on a more of a mentorship leadership style. They understand more because they've been around a little bit longer. Now for Gen X, they tend to want more autonomy and flexibility. Work-life balance is something that's very important to them. You have the millennials, which are more the, the early stages of technology and integration. They tend to be very good at project management because of, the improvements of technology. They have a lot more purpose driven approach to the workforce. Then you have the Gen Z. The Gen Z are a lot more, they're birthed in the pits of technology. So they're birthed in an era where everything is simplified. There's more than enough information everywhere. Everyone is trying to be their own boss. Everyone's trying to get into that sort of digital space. So they're very entrepreneurial. They have digital strength. And if you can have a decent balance in your organization of all of these generations, you subsequently put yourself in a position where you can uh, easily reach your target audience through digital spaces. You have leaders and mentors within one space. You have people that can operate as an individual. People that sort of they can think off the back. They're a bit more creative in what they do. So yeah, to refer to your question, this is pretty much why I kind of lost myself. What was the question again? I went too deep.
That no, that's okay. I was just asking you, why is it important to be able to leverage the unique strengths and skill sets of the different generations within the workforce? Why is that
Yeah.
important for every leader and manager to be able to do?
Yeah. Okay. So pretty much what I said, to just be able to tap into everything that's necessary for a business to grow.
Exactly. Um, I think one of the things that um, I see a lot, and I'm sure everybody sees it. Basically, working with multiple generations at one time, especially working with Gen Z um, and the millennials, it can be a challenge, but it should be a challenge that's welcome because, like I tell people all the time, and I learned this. myself as a leader, it's so easy to deal with people that operate like you, or people that understand like you, people who would do things like you. But it becomes a challenge when you have to lead people who want to do things differently or do things in a way that you wouldn't do it. And so,
Hmm.
as leaders and managers, we have to be able to embrace that. And I often tell people in my own organization, um, when they come to me and they talk about different things and they talk about the different challenges or struggles, and the one thing that I tell them is something that I remember and held dear that somebody said to me. Being a great leader or a manager, um, if you are just dealing with somebody that doesn't give you a challenge, that doesn't define you as a leader. What defines you as a leader and a manager are those people that challenge you to be better.
Hmm.
And so a part of the generations that are coming up, they're challenging us. I say us because I'm a part of a different generation. I'm not a millennial or Gen Z. I'm actually Generation X.
Hmm.
So these new generations, and not just new, but you have the baby boomers and the silent generation. Um, they can bring their own challenges as well. But we have to be able to deal with all of them, like you said. We have to be able to understand what is important to baby boomers, what is important to the silent generation, what is important to millennials, what is important to Gen Zers or Generation X. And now we even have what I think I saw a Generation Alpha.
Yeah.
So we have to really, in order for us to connect, we've got to know what is important to each of these generations. And we're not going to know if we cannot have the conversation and connect with them. And so that becomes a challenge for a lot of different leaders and managers and several organizations. But the best organizations get it right. And those are the ones that do great performance and collaborations. Would
Hmm.
you agree with that?
Most definitely. Some of the top organizations out there right now, or organization that has combined all of these generations, or as much as the a majority of the generations as possible.
All right. So, if you could choose one aspect of leading across generations, if you could choose one aspect of it, what aspect of leading across generations is most important to you, or stands out as being one of the more important aspects of leading across generations?
I would say being flexible is one of the most important things, um, because inflexibility creates conflict sometimes, and it reduces empathy, it reduces trust, it reduces that professional relationship. So being flexible, being open-minded, allowing your staff or your employees to kind of feel as if they have a say, um, share in your vision, share their perspective of your vision. I think is a great advantage for any business. So I'll start with flexibility at number one.
Great flexibility, and I agree with that because I like, excuse me, as a Generation X employee, I like flexibility.
Mm,
And flexibility is one of the most important things to Gen Zers and millennials. Flexibility. And as a matter of fact, in my organization, when newer people come in, um, oftentimes we lose people because that first year is not very flexible, and
mm,
they like flexibility. But that first year, there's very limited flexibility, and so we often lose Gen Zers or millennials to that, because that is important to them. It's important to them that they have their weekends off, or that if they're working a certain shift, it's important to them to have some stability, to know, okay, I'm going to be home at this time, versus saying I don't know because my shift could alternate and in 1 minute I'm here, 1 minute I'm there. So you're right. Flexibility, that is a great one. That is a great one. But I think flexibility is important to all of those
Yeah.
generations.
But if I could,
So go
if I
ahead.
could jump on that, coming in second, or even joint is communication. So based on what you mentioned, which is all these shifts and changes and things can get in the way, if you have a strong ability to communicate, um, it helps. It resolves a lot of potential conflict, a lot of potential issues or risk. It's a form of mitigating any issues. If you can come up, you can say, okay, for the first year, it's going to be really tough. Or oftentimes for the first year, we lose a lot of newcomers because of ABC. So you're managing their expectations, right? And you're communicating up front. Then you can have dialogue. You can have that back and forth, and you can get a clearer perspective of, okay, is flexibility the most important thing to them? You know, what is the most important thing to them? How is their lifestyle or their life set up? What is their working expectations? Once you gather all of this information, you can adapt it. You can customize it in a way that meets their needs. Now you are retaining a new employee. You're meeting some of their needs because there has to be some form of negotiation in there. You're meeting some of their needs, and you have someone that's gonna ride for you for that year that you tend to lose people. But because we don't communicate, we don't some of us as leaders, we don't take feedback well. You know, as leaders, again, it's a bit cliche, but we don't want to be the smartest person in the room. We want to be able to manage, we want to be able to navigate our team, but we want our team to be able to say, boss, you know what? This is my situation. This is my home life. This is my professional life. This is all these various different things. What can you do for me? When you show them that you care by listening, communicating, giving feedback, you're growing your team. And you don't have to have this fight of, I think this person's going to leave because they're giving me a hard time, and all these various issues. So communication can resolve so many potential problems.
Great, great. Again, people don't care what you know until they know how much you care. And, it is important as you talk about that communication, and it just brings me back to that connecting piece. You know, if we don't know how to, I often have people that come to me and they ask me, they may present some sort of scenario and they ask me, well, what should I say? How can I, you know, relate to this person? How can I connect to this person? Come on, help me out and tell me something so that I can get to them or whatever. And it always intrigues me because I often use the same response. And what I say is, well, you have friends, correct? Or you have family members, correct? You have people who you talk to every day and you relate to on some level. And the answer is always yes. And so I asked them, I said, well, to what do you do? What did you do to be able to relate to that person? So they say, well, we just have a conversation, or I talk to this person about sports, or I talk to this person about whatever. And I say, so exactly, excuse me. I say the same way that you relate to the people that you call friends or family, that's the same way you can relate and connect to that person at work. You find something that connects and you're not going to find it if you don't have the conversation. And so what people are not wanting to do is the work that it takes to connect to people. A lot of people just want to have a lot of autonomy and be over in a corner, or just leave me alone. I have my computer and just tell me what I need to do, and I'm going to do my 8 and I'm going to hit the door or whatever.
Mm,
But in order for us to create effective teams and perform as we would like our teams to perform, we've got to put in that work. That means this person I might not know, but I've got to talk to them. I've got to ask them, what is it? Let me learn something about your identity, your culture, your background, something that's important to you. Where did you grow up? What school did you go to? Do you like sports? whatever the case might be, but you find that connector. I'm going to
Hmm.
use the term connector. And once you find something that you can connect to them with, then you just go from there. And as you have that conversation, other connectors develop. And then
Hmm. Yeah.
you use that. That's like the question I asked you: how do you leverage certain things for you to be able to connect and communicate and get employees to perform at the level that they can perform. I think we had a little mistake, but he'll be right back. So, oh, there he is, right there. So,
I don't know what happened.
yeah, that's okay. That happened to me. Actually, that happened to me on my first show, and I was so grateful that the people that were on the show just continued the show until I popped back in. So I know how that
Nice.
feels. But that's the thing. Just find that connector, and once we
Hmm.
find that connector, we go from there, and
Hmm.
then we would be surprised at what develops from there. And we do it every day. So it's funny that we look at it as such a challenge when we're at work, when most people do it every single day.
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
And I think it's important that people remember as well. It's not everyone wants to communicate. Not everyone knows how to communicate. No one, everyone has that confidence. And sometimes lack of communication is communication. If you have a staff member that, you try to have a conversation with them and they kind of bit standoffish or they kind of bit quiet, cool. Read the room. That person probably doesn't want to communicate. Maybe that person just likes, as you said, give me the task that I need to do. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm leaving at 8. Cool. You know that is who you're working with. So you adapt some way, adapt. So that's what they get. If you try to over communicate and put them in a situation that makes them too uncomfortable, you're gonna leave that person. So if you have just a straight 9 to 5ers, cool. Manage him or her that way. If you have someone who likes to do a little bit more, manage him or her that way. If you have someone that's very social, manage him or her that way. Again, you're not being too flexible, you're not being too friendly, you're not being too relaxed. What you're doing is you're understanding the personalities and characteristics within your space, and you're allowing them to showcase their strengths within that space. Some people can't come to work if they're not able to talk to their employees. Okay, talk. But is there KPI? Do they have tasks? Do they have, at the end of the month, what are they presenting? As long as they're delivering that at the end of the day, you're okay. If you feel like they're being disruptive, again, you communicate that. You express, your thoughts or your feelings about their actions. Find out how they feel about it. Most of the time, they will come to you after you present it and say, you know what, boss? Yeah, I guess I am a little bit, distracted. I'll do a little bit better. So they've already set their own task. They've already set um, how they're going to approach things by you just addressing it. You know what I mean? Final point, which I address with a lot of my clients, which is if you're new in business and you have a few staff and you're not quite sure what your managerial or leadership style is, you can address this at home. If you have your wife and kids, your husband and kids, start from there. Start from understanding your partner a little bit more and how you're gonna better address them. Start from reading your kids a little bit more and how you're gonna address them. Same thing with your friends, and that's how you get practice of reading the room, reading the person opposite you, and how you can. And over time, you will learn how to make the shift within that moment. So for me, I can walk into a room, shake a hand, ask a few questions. I realize, okay, this person's kind of like this. Okay, I'm gonna shift my body language. I'm gonna change my tone of voice or my pitch, or I'm gonna speak a different way. Maybe I need to be more articulate in how I speak, or maybe I need to kind of switch it up and make it a little bit more like this, so I can build that relationship with that person. So these are all leadership and managerial skills that can really, again, boost your productivity in your business.
all right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Great stuff. What we're going to do, we're going to take a break real quick. We're going to go to a couple of commercials. When we come back, we're going to drop a link in the chat. And we're going to invite, if you are out there listening or viewing, we're going to invite you to come up onto stage and address either one of us or both of us with your question that has something to do with leading across generations, the conversation we're having right now, or you can make a general statement about what you have gathered or gleaned since you've been listening to the conversation. So keep in mind everything that we've been discussing, myself and Durwayne, and we're going to be right back. We're excited. We're going to carry out the rest of this conversation, and we're going to end it with a bang. So stay tuned. Presented by Dr. Timothy Felton and Teron Coleman, Black Boys Matter explore the vital role of parental presence in raising Black sons. As Black boys navigate persistent obstacles and challenges, fostering authentic, trusting, and nurturing relationships through positive engagement becomes crucial. Each chapter of this profound manuscript leaves readers with greater understanding and deliberate techniques for addressing the issues these young men face. Get your copy wherever books are sold. Dr. Candicia Randolph's book, The Black American Church, Leadership Dispensation and Challenges, critically examines leadership within the Black church, drawing from historical and anthropological perspectives. It identifies challenges faced by this vital institution in the Black American community and proposes practical solutions. The church's impact on Black culture and leadership is explored, emphasizing its historical context and influence over nearly 5 centuries. Through research and data, the manuscript aims to enhance the church's effectiveness and cultural relevance. Get your copy where books are sold today. Dr. Ian Buchanan, a native of East St. Louis, Illinois, is the CEO of the NIA Education Group. He is deeply committed to servant leadership and addressing inequities. His best-selling book, King, a 4-part leadership framework for Black men, is making waves in the leadership community. His extensive experience spans teaching, school leadership, and advocacy. Pick up your copy of King today wherever books are sold. All right. We're back with my guest host, DrWhitty McPherson, and we're talking about leading across generations. Now, before we went to break, I said that we would drop the link. We hope that you're out there listening to this conversation. If you have a question or you have a relevant comment to the discussion that we're having, which is leading across generations, we want you to tap that link. We'll pull you up when we see you backstage, and we will let you ask your question or make your relevant statement. Durwayne, we're back. So, what do you believe is most responsible for fueling that so-called generational gap? Now, I know we've been, sorry about that. I was going to say, I know we've been talking about key ones, which is what? Communication.
Yeah.
We talked about connection, but besides communication and connection, what do you believe is most responsible for creating that so-called generational gap in the workforce?
First come to mind is technology. With the tremendous technology advancement that's creating a huge gap. I think it's also career progression and development. That's being handled very differently as per the generations change. And I think it's also different values, so over the generations, what the earlier generations wanted and how they saw the workforce compared to the latest Gen X. It's just very different,
I agree. When I'm having this discussion and I'm doing training about this, oftentimes I have a little illustration or PowerPoint, and what I do is I have a breakdown of all of the generations that I'm aware of, such as, the silent generation, the baby boomers, Gen X, Gen Z, millennials. And what I have on there is a breakdown of what is important to those specific generations. And you'd be surprised that the looks that you get, because most people do not have a clue until you show that to them, and they're like, wow, that I can see why we have so many different challenges. Because the one thing that you mentioned was technology, and so that is one of the things that is in underneath of millennials and Gen Zers, is that technology, because because of the cell phones, the pads, the headphones in the ear, all that type of stuff. And one of the things that I had a challenge with, um, going back to what you was talking about when you said that, you have to grab people in the first, what I think you said, the first 10 minutes. You have to grab them. If you're doing, in fact, that's pretty much known. If you're talking to a group of people, you've got to grab their attention in the first 10 minutes, because if you lose them in that first 10 minutes, they're gone. And so one of the things that I used to notice about the groups that I present to is, they would always be distracted with their mobile devices. And so that can be a frustration to anybody who's trying to present some important information to someone. And so what I did was I said, okay, well, it doesn't do any good to be frustrated, because that's where we are. We have technology. So now, how can I leverage technology to the benefit of those that I'm talking to? So, of course, I would do things like find um, surveys or interactive questions or whatever that you could utilize by scanning a QR code and using your mobile device or whatever, because now they're on their mobile device, but they're still interacting with the class. And so, but then a challenge with that is, depending on the type of organization that you're at, you have to make sure that you have that type of access and that it's legal for you to do it, because then that can create a whole nother um, situation if you are, for instance, you work for a government institution. So you have to be really careful about the way that technology is used as well.
Mhm.
So, so what is your number one tactic? What is the number one tactic? I would say you mentioned adaptability. And
Mhm.
so I would think, okay, you meet an employee that you're not used to dealing with, and you see that this particular employee presents a particular set of challenges, in terms of you getting them to perform and produce what you're trying to accomplish. So, if you could think of an employee or just think of a scenario, what is an important tactic that you use when you're dealing with people or a certain person from a certain generation?
The first thing I want to say is you you can't fit a square into a triangle, right? So you have to already understand what it is that you want for your business or what you want for this particular situation or project. That's number one, right? Now, if you find someone is in your organization that you need to work with, but you haven't quite figured them out yet, or they present various challenges, I go right back to where I started. Active listening. Ask the questions. Be upfront. Let's have a sit down. You know what? I find an informal chat works best. Hey, you know what? Let's go out. Let's grab a coffee. I want to talk to you about something. And this is completely off the books. This is just between you and I. If I say anything that may offend you or may come across incorrectly, please do correct me. Um, because that is not my intention. I just want to have an off the record conversation with you, open. And then you say, well, this is where I am at with this particular situation. I just wanted to know what's your thoughts on it, right? And then they'll express their thoughts. It's just like we're doing now. It's feedback, it's dialogue, and you kind of nitpick a little bit more and get them to open up a little bit more, and you can get your answers. By the end of that conversation, you should have an idea of, okay, you know what? Maybe it's because this person hasn't really been in this situation before. They have the educational skills, but they're not used to this organization. Maybe this person at where they used to work, it used to be the setup was very different, so they're struggling trying to fit in. Actually, it's not that this person's challenging, but this person has their own individual challenges that they're trying to meet in order to be able to give me what I need for this business. You'll find more than what your assumption led you to believe. So again, that comes down to just active listening. It comes down to being communicative. It comes down to showing some empathy. Um, it's being a leader. It's being a strategic leader, strategic manager, and approaching it from a very humane standpoint.
Exactly, exactly. It takes me to my other point, what I said earlier. You have to be willing to do the work, because because all the things that you just talked about says you have to be willing to put aside some time. You got to be willing to sit there and have a conversation. You got to be willing to hear what that person says back to you.
Mm,
And you've got to be willing to, that if that person gives you some feedback that, let's say, maybe you don't really like it or it rubs you the wrong way, but you have to be willing to hear that feedback, and you have to be willing to look at yourself. And if it is an area that, let's say, you might need to adapt or whatever, then you have to be willing to do that, because you, even though you are the leader, you're still a part of the team. And so the whatever outcome you're trying to produce, what matters is the mission and the team. And so even us leaders, we have to be able to put aside our own feelings about certain different things and certain people. And then we have to take a look, is this a valid point that this person is making? Could I change or adapt in this area? And am I willing to, and should I be willing to? And I believe the answer is yes to all of that, unless what you're being asked to do is something unethical, or totally, like, obviously ridiculous. But if it's something that helps you connect to that person and gain an understanding, and help you be able to communicate with that person, I'm all for it. You take the time that you have to take, whether you like it or not, and then you go from there, you build from there.
mhm. Can I just add
So
on to
go
that?
ahead. Go ahead.
It's important as leaders, decision makers, managers to understand that it is our responsibility to create the space these people can work in. That's why we're doing these extra things that we're doing, right? You don't want to just be spending your time dictating. You are supposed to create that space. That's your job. Create the space for them to be their best. It's
I
not just
like
about
that.
delegating.
I like that. I was getting ready to say, Dwayne, you got to repeat that one. It is our responsibility to create that space for our people to be able to work in and perform and produce. And so many people they do not get that, or don't even believe it. It's
Mm,
like, um, somebody said to me once, in terms of an organization, that if you cut, it was something along the lines of, if you cut off the head of the fish, the head stinks, and so does the rest of the body, right?
mm,
And
mm,
so it kind of makes you understand just how important it's, like, whatever attitude an organization has, you can trace it all the way to the main leader.
mm. That's right.
Because if the organization is energetic, I bet you there's an energetic person at the top.
Mm,
If an organization, if you walk in there and everybody's nasty, I guarantee you can trace it all the way to the top.
hmm
Um, and a lot of people don't understand that. So we, as employees, and that's going around, that's an important aspect when you talk about these newer generations, where, let's say, my generation or generations before might, let's say, put up with that type of thing. These Gen Zers and millennials and alphas, one of the main things that comes across when people leave, that I've noticed when people leave, is, I didn't like the attitude of my supervisor.
hmm
It stinks. I didn't like the way that person talked to me. And now I might, it could be personal. I don't know. But here's the thing. As a leader, like you said, it's our responsibility to create an environment for our team to do things and reach their full potential and want to be there and want to produce.
Mm-hmm.
And so many times we do just the opposite. We do things that make people want to leave organizations. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's a part of, the reason why I think this type of conversation is important, because if you're out there and you're in a leadership role, it doesn't even matter really if you have a title or in a leadership role, because I believe that you can lead from anywhere in the organization. In fact, I've led a lot of things and never had a title, but had great influence.
Mm-hmm.
So you have influence no matter what level you're on. And so you should take these same ideas and concepts and principles and say, okay, I'm going to learn how to work on myself, my communication style. I'm going to learn how to do this. I'm going to learn how to receive feedback, because it just makes it makes the entire workforce operate better and seamlessly,
Mm-hmm.
if you will. All right. So we're coming up. It's almost time to close. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I'm going to give you a final thought. Dwayne, first of all, I want to thank you for coming and being on the platform. Like I said, we were waiting for this one for quite a while. I hope you don't make this your last visit on Dr. Whitty today. I always tell people that once you've come on, you consider yourself alumni, and so I'm going to try to have you back to participate in other episodes. What I want you to do is give us a final thought about leading across generations, and then tell people where they can find you outside of Dr. Whitty today.
Final thought. Uh, if you are a leader or aspire to be a leader, you have to be very self-reflective. And I think that's where it really starts. You have to look at yourself, identify your strengths and your weaknesses as a professional, um, and then always ask why and how. Why is this important? How do I improve it? What do I need to do? Who do I need to speak to? These are very important questions for you as an individual. And a lot of times, these are questions that you will essentially have discussions with your own staff or with your people that you're going to collaborate with, and that will open up so many doors. So I would say 100% start from there. What, why, how, when, who. And as for where you can find me, um, my website is www.shapeyouconsulting.co.uk, and pretty much all across all my other platforms is just Durwayne McPherson. Just Google that and everything will come up, even some of my old stuff.
And shape you, that means the letter U and
The
not
letter U.
YOU.
That's right.
So
Yes. Thank you.
you can find him, and he's out there and he's ready to help you out. He's ready to come to your organization if you're looking for somebody. So just tap into him as a resource and help him out there as he continues to do great things in the workforce. So I'm grateful for each and every person that tuned in to Dr. Whitty today. Um, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on YouTube, Facebook, X, and also Instagram. We have a show coming up on August the 5th. We're going to be talking to Marquise Trent, and we're going to be talking about his book, Planned Maturity. This is a great one. I hope you guys tune in. We're going to be talking about the book that you wish you had when you were a teen. And let me tell you, this is an awesome book. I'm going to be hoping to share this with one of the teams that I'm working with right now. But I'm going to make sure that I get through this, and we're going to have a conversation with Marquise on August the 5th. We invite you to tune in. We invite you to bring a team with you, and we hope that you will enjoy that show as well. Dwayne, once again, thank you for tuning in. It was an honor, it was a privilege, and do not make this the last time that you're going to be on Dr. Whitty today. Hopefully, we can work together on some sort of project, but I'm sure we'll talk about that um, in the future at some
For
other
sure.
time. Dr. Whitty today, folks, we hope that you've been blessed not only in your mind, your heart, your spirit, but your soul as well. We hope that all of those elements of you have learned something and have gone to college tonight. We'll see you the next time on Dr. Whitty Today. Stand by, Durwayne. We still have the after show. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Dr. Whitty Today. We appreciate your time, and your viewership is the heartbeat of our show. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and most importantly, subscribe. Your support keeps us going, and we can't wait to have you back. So hit the notification bell to find out when we air live. Until then, stay curious, stay inspired, stay motivated, and stay tuned.